the decided to make it so hard to buy a house and be able to afford a house?
So back in the day, our parents used to be able to afford a house with only one income. Now we can't even afford it with two.
People all over the country are giving up because they can't afford to buy a home and the American dream seems out of reach. But if you're not careful, you could be the next one priced out. Many people believe it's the younger generation's fault that they can't afford homes. But is that really true?
Young people just don't want to work. They don't want to work hard, and that's why so many young people can't afford to buy a home. Do you know how annoying it is for me to hear that as a realtor? Let's be very clear. A lot of our grandparents and our great-grandparents and Gen X and baby boomers, they bought their homes for 13 blueberries and a handshake. I was doing some research for a video I'm posting later, and somebody bought 80 acres of land in the mid-1800s for $100. That's like unfathomable to me. The average home in America today is going to cost you around $400,000. Are there cheaper homes? Yes. Are there more expensive homes? Yes. Duh. But the average American salary does not align proportionally with that home price. Meaning, a lot of people can't afford to buy a home. And a lot of people never will be able to.
I appreciate that the realtor is sharing this perspective. I've had similar conversations with boomers, and many of them simply don't understand the reality today. It's not that buying a home is impossible, but it's objectively much harder than it was in the 70s, in the 80s, when homes across the country could be bought for under $100,000. In many areas today, you basically need to be a high income earner just to afford a basic starter home. When I looked at the numbers in my own zip code, the median household income versus the median home price, the math showed that many people here will never be able to buy a home if they stay in this area. And I know this isn't unique. It's happening all over the country. By the way, when I say median income, that means half make less, half make more. For home prices, it means that half are more expensive and half are less expensive. So do you think boomers are out of touch? Let me know. Is this simply a misunderstanding between two generations? And is there actually a solution to this tension that we're feeling? Let's find out.
I find it so interesting that people of the older generations are so quick to put blame onto us as the younger people, as if there is not a systemic issue at hand as far as affordability of housing goes. Nobody is saying that our grandmas and our grandpas and their grandparents, they didn't work hard for what they had. Nobody is saying that. But in comparison to where we are at in our economy and in our financial situations today, you can't even begin to make the case that this is a level playing field. I'm sorry. So if you were in a boat where, you know what, you're like, I don't know if I'll ever buy a home, and that's really disappointing, I empathize with you and I am very sorry. I wish I had more answers given my line of work, but I don't. But just know that you are not the problem. I'm not the problem. They are not the problem. This is so much larger and bigger than all of us individually. And there are going to be people in our lives that just never will understand that.
I think this can be solved by having open conversations with the older generation about the realities we're living with today. This reminds me of the conversation around Gen Z struggling to get entry-level jobs. It's not because they're all lazy, it's because the job market is tough right now. We're all experiencing that. And I can appreciate that she gave a balanced perspective on what's going on. To me, this makes it more important than ever to do what you can to get into a home that you can afford, even if it means moving to a different area where prices are more reasonable. So why do you think prices have gone up so much? Let me know in the comments. Is there any hope if you live in an expensive area? The answer might surprise you.
Who the decided to make it so hard to buy a house and be able to afford a house, given I live in Washington State, okay? Like, I'm already way behind other states because it is incredibly difficult to get a house here. The market is everybody wants a house, and on top of that, if you don't want a house, you want property, and then to be able to build in that house, which is what we were looking into doing, but it's so hard to do that. I have 2 jobs. I make a pretty good income for my jobs, being a barista. My fiance has a really good income for what he does. I'm a student. We've saved so much money for, like, people our age. We have very little debt for people in our age group. we are literally, I feel like, doing everything right. And it's just so hard. And I also don't understand anything about getting a house. And I fear that the information out is so incredibly misleading, so easy to misunderstand, and nobody really will just like sit with you and explain things to you and help you figure them out. Everyone just wants to like push you to buy a house and like push you to do things. And we are just so tired. Or let me not speak for my fiance, but I personally am so tired. Like, we haven't even been doing this for that long. We've been in the market for like 3 months. And it's just so insane. I don't get it.
So I understand her frustration, especially because she lives in a state that's already known for being expensive. I am curious though about what city she actually lives in, since affordability can vary a lot within the state of Washington. She didn't share details about how much she makes or how much she has saved, so it makes it kind of hard to fully understand the situation. To me, the first issue seems to be lack of education and maybe even a lack of planning for what affording a home could realistically look like. A good real estate agent will be happy to walk her through the entire process so she has a basic understanding. So I'm hoping that she finds one. By the way, if you're looking to buy or sell a home within the next year, I can get you connected to a realtor in your area. Just hit the link in the pinned comment for more information. Honestly, I think she's simply overwhelmed by the whole process and probably can't afford a home in her area right now. So I empathize with her. But I want to hear from you. Do you think she's overreacting about this? People always argue about why home prices are so high, but the data provides some insight that might surprise you.
Let me summarize for you just how unaffordable it's become for the average American to buy a house in the United States. The average household income in the United States is $80,000 a year. And a financial advisor recommends that you spend only 25% of your after-tax income on your housing budget. Your after-tax income, if you make $80,000 a year, is $60,000. And if you were to take 25% of that on a monthly basis standpoint, your monthly mortgage payment should be no more than $1,250 per month. A $1,250 per month mortgage budget only affords you a $175,000 home. But the average home price here in America is $420,000. So the average household in America can only afford a $175,000 home, but the average home price is $420,000. That, simply put, is the entire issue that Americans are dealing with right now. Do not let anybody ever tell you that right now is the right time to buy. The right time to buy a house is when you can afford it, and that's it. And if you can't afford it, that's totally fine. Renting is okay. I'm a realtor saying that. Way too many realtors out there are trying to tell you that right now is the right time to buy. It is a realtor's job to help you buy or sell your house when you decide it's the right time. But it is not a realtor's job to tell you when that right time is.
So I believe the guideline of spending no more than 25% of your take-home pay on housing works well for most people. And when I say take-home pay, that's money after taxes and deductions. That percentage can increase depending on how much debt you have and what your overall expenses look like. I think the bigger problem is the gap between income and home prices has widened over time. And people also have less buying power today, not only because of debt and stagnant wages, but also because each dollar doesn't stretch as far as it used to years ago. So in Q2 of 2020, the median home sales price was about $317,100. By Q2 of 2025, that number jumped to $410,800. Median household income has been pretty much flat since then. And in many of the areas you all live in, the difference in home prices over the years is even greater. But there's still hope. And I'm going to share some possible solutions later on, so make sure you stick around. Are homes affordable where you live? I would love to hear from you. So we've all heard the advice. Cut out the small stuff and you'll be able to afford a home. But does that actually work? But first, I need you to like and subscribe button. If you want to get better at real estate investing, you gotta follow this channel. Also, 92% of you watching aren't subscribed, and it's free. So hit that subscribe button.
The reason why you can't afford to buy a home in 2025 and you're still living at your parents' house is because you drink Starbucks, you have a cell phone, you have a Netflix subscription, and you buy clothes. Apparently, this is the reason why. And it has nothing to do with the fact that home prices have gone up 60% in the last 5 years. And let's not forget that the average rent in the United States is at least $2,000. No, it's a cell phone and Starbucks. I agree with people to some extent that if you want to buy a house in 2025, you need to cut back on spending and make some sacrifices. But if giving up Starbucks was the answer, no one would be drinking it. And it's not like people in the 1930s didn't have things to waste their money on. But the big difference is back then, essentials weren't eating up 60% of their gross income. Today, if you add up your shelter costs, your food, your gas, you're going to be 60% into your paycheck. There's not much left to play with, let alone save. And I know comparing with the Great Depression is oversimplistic, but reading some of your responses is just shocking. Do you people not realize the housing crisis we're currently going through right now? There are literally engineers in the comments section that can't afford to buy a house, and that's not right. But yeah, keep blaming the $7 coffee and the avocado toast.
A lot of people online point to the small joys in life, like a cup of coffee, I love coffee, a streaming subscription, or the occasional night out as the main reason that people can't buy homes. But I think that completely misses the point. There are plenty of people who have done everything right and they still can't afford a home where they live. It wasn't always like that in this country, and that's a fact. I've always believed in budgeting in a way that makes sense for your life. But at a certain point, you can only save so much. The bigger issue is the cost of buying a house itself. However, he did make some great points about what people are going through. The reality of it is this is the kind of housing market where it takes sacrifice and creativity to reach your goals. There's no other way. But do you think people's overspending on small pleasures is what's actually preventing them from buying a home? Let me know what you think. Affordability looks different depending on where you live, but some mortgage payments are just unbelievable.
Okay, I'm not trying to say y'all are lying about your mortgage payments, but I need some clarity. I'm gonna put some photos right here. I'm on the mortgage side of TikTok. I'm, I guess, on the wrong side because I can never afford this. Mortgage, $5,300. I'm gonna post all the pictures right here. Mortgage, $2,919. Mortgage, $5,073. I have to recheck. Hold on. I just went back and rewatched those videos. $5,000 for mortgage? Okay, people clap at me like, oh, you chose a camper. Heck yeah! How are y'all... Okay, how are y'all affording mortgage? Okay, so my question for you, honestly, what is your mortgage, what's your insurance, and what year did you buy the house? I know the later the year, the cheaper your mortgage is, but $5,000, guys? Like, when y'all signed, what jobs are you working? There's no way y'all are playing, like, everybody on my For You page is like 4,000, 5,000, 6,000. Are y'all really, did y'all really sign that for 30 years? I need to know if this is true or not.
I think perspective is important here. For someone in California, they'd be shocked to hear how much cheaper mortgages are in other states. For someone in a small town, they'd be shocked to learn that people pay $5,000 per month for a mortgage on a standard home. I always wonder what jobs people work when I see home prices here in California. And contrary to what you might assume, there are people who can actually afford these high mortgage payments. Not everybody's broke, but there are also people who are maxing out their budgets and can barely afford those high mortgages. That's why I don't recommend comparing yourself to anyone else. You really never know the full story of their finances. So how much is too much for a mortgage in your opinion? No matter how unattainable home ownership seems, you should never feel like there's nothing you can do to improve your situation. Let's find out why.
Hard truth, when it comes to money, if you don't have the will, there's never going to be a way. And so I completely understand where you're coming from. I'm 24 years old, I graduated college, and you know what though? I own a house. My situation is obviously different than yours, just as everybody else's situations are always different. So here is some advice. If I was in your position, I would find a group of friends and I would go in on a house together. And I can make a whole video on that, how, buying a house with roommates is actually more common than you think. Another option is you can enlist in the military. With a college degree, you can go and become an officer in the military, make $70,000 to $80,000 a year. Most of it is not taxable. Purchase a home with 0% down and have all your loans paid off. But again, that's not for everybody, and I'm not going to push that. The other option is to truly budget. If you're not good at tracking expenses, I highly recommend using the Every Dollar app. There's a huge media push saying that buying a home is not a smart option. And in my opinion, that's just wrong. I truly believe investors are trying to convince people that not purchasing a home is in their best interests. My mentality is you can be house poor now and rich later, instead of being rich now and poor later. I personally would like to retire by the age of 50, if not earlier. I don't want to be 80 years old and still working. I believe you're more capable of purchasing a home than you think, truly. And if you have any questions, please feel free to contact me. I'm always happy to answer them.
So I like that she mentioned buying a house with other people. This can be a good option for those in expensive areas who can't or simply don't want to move. This could look like buying a single family home and each person taking a room, or getting a duplex, living in one unit and renting the other out, or everyone having their private unit. If you have a family, this idea can still work. Some duplexes are large enough to accommodate families, and in certain cities, 2 houses on one lot are legally considered a duplex. So there's different ways you can look at it. I also agree with her about budgeting. Even if it takes you longer than you like to buy your home, building good financial habits now will definitely help you once you have the responsibility of home ownership. So would you ever consider buying a home with trusted friends or family, or have you done it already? I would love to hear what you think. Sometimes home ownership isn't all it's cracked up to be, and this next clip has a pretty funny way of showing it.
The way I have always wanted to buy a house, I've always wanted my kids to be able to say, at some point, be able to say, I don't care where I live, my mama address gonna always be my mailing address, unless they like move out of state or whatever. But I don't think I'm gonna buy no house, like, ever. The way people keep getting up here basically telling us they house poor, and I'm not even like, I promise y'all this is not me throwing shade. I feel bad for y'all. Mortgage going up hundreds of dollars a year, and you got to take care of all your maintenance. And then the people keep talking about D.R. Horton. I don't know if that's a Dr. Seuss character or not, but they are saying don't buy no houses from that man. So I feel even worse for y'all. They on Threads talking about they be making houses out of graham crackers and dots. I don't think I'm gonna ever buy no house.
So she said D.R. Horton is a Dr. Seuss character. She's funny. And I honestly can't believe she was saying they're building houses with graham crackers. But all jokes aside, I don't think the fact that someone chose to be house poor should stop you from wanting a home. The poor decisions that other people make should be seen simply as teachable moments so that you can make smarter decisions. Many people don't realize that their taxes and insurance can go up every year, which increases their monthly payment. It's important to factor this in when deciding if you can actually afford a home. And as far as maintenance, if the home is in good condition, there usually isn't a crazy amount of work required. And I think this concern is really overblown for most people. When buyers overpay, everyone loses. And here's why that matters.
For anybody who's buying a house in New Jersey, can you stop overbidding? That's all I'm asking. Can we go back to the time when people used to underbid instead of overbid? Because we're gonna give this house buying a try one more time. This is our third shot at this. We're gonna do it in the fall, and I'm here thinking, well, maybe collectively we could all like stop overbidding and start underbidding again like it used to be. And maybe, you know, not throw that extra 50 to 100,000 over, because why would you want your principal to be higher to begin with? Like, isn't it the goal to make it the lower the better? Like, please, I am begging you. Again, only for New Jersey. Could be applied everywhere else too, but specifically in New Jersey. Thanks.
My one correction to her statement is that it's not just New Jersey. People everywhere should stop overbidding. And like I've said before, I think this became a really big problem between 2020 and 2022 when the rates were low. It honestly made people lose all their common sense. In my opinion, the housing market is largely a byproduct of human behavior. When something is scarce, people often want it more, though I'll never really understand that kind of mindset. You should never overpay for a home. I don't care how much you like it, but I want to hear from you. Is it ever okay to offer more for a house than it's worth, even if you've fallen in love with the home? So we've come a long way from the days when one income easily covered everything. So let's talk a little bit about what's changed.
So back in the day, our parents used to be able to afford a house with only one income. Now we can't even afford it with two. Back then, a house used to run you between 100 and maybe 300,000, given the type and size of house that you wanted. Now, you can't even find a house for $300,000 in certain areas, and they go all the way up to $1 million for the same property that would probably be max $400,000 back in the day. And then let's talk about the wages and the inflation. Inflation has gone up so much since 2020 that it's insanity to me, and the wages has not gone up the same specifically, especially back then. Your wages was able to get you an apartment or a house if you wanted to with the right prepping and planning. But now, even with the right prepping and planning, you're barely making it for a rental or for a mortgage. And then the housing market is just trash. The fact that they're not building any more single family houses as they used to, and just building up apartment complexes, you can already see where this is going. And now it's just harder to build wealth. I mean, you see everything going up around us, so when is the gonna have the time to save? But let's be honest here. Do you actually think that we're gonna go back to affordable housing? I don't think so. Per se, for me at least.
So I'm not sure how far he's going back, but there was also a time when a single income could support a whole family, buy a house, and really take care of everything. And that feels pretty rare these days. He mentioned that lots of new apartment buildings are popping up in some cities, and I see the same thing in my city. And I believe part of it comes from laws and incentives encouraging developers to build more rental units. The issue I have is that some of these apartments aren't truly affordable, and a lot of them just sit with a ton of vacancies because it's too expensive. However, I don't think we should count on homes becoming significantly more affordable. A better way to think about it is to plan realistically, to either buy where you are now alone or with other people, or eventually relocate to somewhere more affordable. So the American dream may look different today, but I want to encourage you that it's still achievable. That might mean, again, relocating to a more affordable area, co-buying with other people, or simply sticking to a realistic budget while you save and figure out your plan. The key is to plan ahead and take the steps that make sense for your situation. So if you want to get started, you can check out my free home affordability calculator. It'll give you an estimate of what could be realistic for your income and your budget. You can find that in the pinned comment of this video. And if you're looking to buy or sell within the next year, I can connect you with a trusted realtor in your area. That's also in the pinned comment of this video. So now that you know about home affordability challenges, I want you to learn about how to avoid the worst home buying mistakes. Check out this video right here.